Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the channel. Welcome to the next episode of the Hillbilly Files. My name is Leo, for those of you who don't know, and I will be your humble hillbilly host today. And today we are somewhere that I am very familiar with. I have family from here and family buried here as well. I have a nephew, well, right up here around this curve on the left. My grandparents, many moons ago, had an old cabin right up there on the hill. The gentleman that takes care of this graveyard just stopped a second ago. He's a Yates, just out of curiosity to see what I was doing. He knew my mom, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents. He knew my entire family, and he was showing me, yeah, that right up there was where their house was. You went up a little path to get to their house. So yeah, a little bit nostalgic. I had an aunt and uncle, Sonny and Fanny, who lived right over there on the other side of this little clump of trees. There's a railroad track. They lived on the other side of it. We had believe it or not, there was a well behind the house that someone had put a barrel in, I guess to keep the children from falling in or something, and was using it for whatever, hot moonshine, I have no clue. We got the house, and my cousins and I, Tommy and Gene and I, we started putting snakes in it. And we were catching snakes and putting them in there, and we'd feed them fish and frogs and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah, we got into it with some bullies right here when I was about 8 or 10. Right down there where this guardrail ends and those little, about where that sign is, waiting on a school bus one morning. Got into it with some bullies, and I pulled a snake on them. I had a snake in my pocket, pulled a snake on them. They didn't mess with me after that. It was just a hateful little thing. It was just all the time biting you, but it didn't have no teeth. Couldn't hurt you, but you know, you put it on somebody, it's probably terrifying. Anyway, Merrimac, West Virginia is a very small, unincorporated town, if you even want to call it that, here in Bloody Mingo County. Very close to the Hatfield and McCoy feud sites, of course. Merrimac is a Native American word that means swift water because of the river right over here on the other side of the train tracks. Guys, we are knee deep in the middle of some real hillbilly territory here. I'm here for 2 reasons today. One is to tell you guys a story, and the other is to document an old local cemetery here. We stay very busy with the YouTube channels, you know, between filming and editing, but one of the things that we like to do as we go is update Find a Grave listings, which, if you're not familiar with, is basically a website that keeps track of where graves are and general information about the people. A lot of the older graves in particular are documented incorrectly. If the death certificate says Merrimac Cemetery, people sometimes just take that for face value, but it actually means a cemetery in Merrimac, and sometimes it's even, you know, in a town nearby and not in that town at all, or a plot in some other cemetery that someone simply starts calling the Merrimac Cemetery. So unless you lay your eyes on the actual grave, it's never certain. Now, we aren't paid for that or, you know, anything like that, but we do take time to go through and update the grave listings while we're here. Now, you guys don't get to see that part of the video, but the people that look for that information to find lost family members or to look for their ancestors someday, they will find what they're looking for. They will find the information they're looking for. So, today I am here to document an old McCoy cemetery that claims to have many graves that we would like to verify, and also a very interesting story or two behind those gravestones. Well, I found the ones that I'm looking for. And before we get started, I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge Mr. Yates that I just met. I see a bunch of Yates family members right over here. A whole bunch of them. Now, I'll be documenting these here just in a few. I'll document all of them. But I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge how neat and pretty, you know, the graveyard is. All the stones painted and grass cut, and you know, a lot of the old cemeteries around here, that as old as this one, well, let's just say they don't look as good as this. But anyway, right here is the reason that we came here today. Right here, get down here without falling. Lydia McCoy, 1873-1942, and Albert McCoy, 1870 to 1951. I'm gonna get back here a little bit, get out of the way, get out of my own way. Arm's itching, sorry. Hard to do holding the camera and trying not to fall in the wet grass. Lydia Doris McCoy here, who went by Liddy, was born December 30th in 1872, right here in Merrimac. She's the daughter of Richard Phillips and Vicey Scott. In January of 1873, she married a man named Albert Jackson McCoy in Logan, West Virginia. That's Albert here. Albert is the son of Sylvester McCoy and Mary Frances McCoy Varney. He was born in Blackberry, Kentucky, not far from here. Albert and Lydia lived in Logan for a while, but came back here to Merrimac, which is about an hour from Logan, give or take. They settled here and had 7 children together. Albert was listed on the census as working on his own account as a farmer pretty consistently throughout his life. In December of 1916, right here in Merrimac, they had their final child, a son named Donald. He was the baby of the family. When Donald was 23, he worked at a grocery store here called F.R. Thompson Grocery. We came across that from his military World War II draft card, by the way. At 24 years old, Donald lived at home with his aging parents, and he's the only child left in the home at this point. On August 7th, while still working as a merchant, Donald became sick. The sickness lasted around 2 days, and then suddenly he died. He was 26 at the time. The death certificate said that he had heart disease and myocarditis. Now, myocarditis is inflammation of the heart muscle. The condition can reduce the heart's ability to pump blood. It can cause chest pain, shortness of breath, rapid or irregular breathing. Infection with a virus is one of the causes. Sometimes it's caused by a medicine reaction or a condition that causes inflammation throughout the body. In severe cases, it weakens the heart so that the rest of the body doesn't get enough blood. Clots can form in the heart, which is exactly what happened in this case. He got a blood clot, which turned out to be fatal. But the story doesn't end there. 2 p.m., the day after Donald died, his mom, Lydia, suddenly died too. The death certificate actually says that she died of shock from her son's death, and then went on to add that she was, quote, big and fat. Now, I'm sorry about that, everyone, but, you know, don't shoot the messenger. That's literally their words, not ours. Either way, she couldn't live without her youngest child. And we have no way of knowing what that relationship looked like, but hopefully they're all together now and will never be separated again. She must have truly loved him very much. Albert went on to live a bit longer until February 7th in 1951. He was laid to rest here next to Lydia. Donald's grave isn't shown anywhere, so this is how we will know if he's buried here with his parents. You have to actually come here in person and see. If you find a stone with his name on it, you find much more than that at the same time. Either way, rest in peace, McCoy family. This is just another story of love and loss from the hills and hollers of hillbilly country. Now, I did find something before I got started on this right here. Remember I said I had to prepare. I'm prepared. Look what I found. He's not lost anymore, is he? He's not lost anymore, guys. And here are several of their other children as well. I remember reading the list of children. Oakley was one of them. And Heather mentioned that the names were just like elegant. Like I said, we wanted to bring you guys out here and show you this and tell you this story about Lydia and Albert and Donald, of course, who died at a very young age. It's just, you tell all these stories and it seems like there's always a tragic end because the people obviously died. You know, there's always going to be a tragic end, and unfortunately we know how theirs ended. We know their story now, don't we? And Donald's story is now, it will live on in your memory. It will live on in YouTube, and it will be documented. And we now have, like I said, we now have evidence. We can put this listing on Find a Grave and ensure Donald's legacy, other than his stone, which will deteriorate over time. So in theory, as long as our civilization lasts, as long as there's not a meteor that destroys the world, as long as YouTube servers don't get destroyed, Donald's legacy will live on. And so will Lydia's and Albert's and everyone else here. Because just as soon as I get finished with this video, I'm going to go ahead and document this entire cemetery and update everything. As I go through these on the other video, of course, Heather will be adding all sorts of information, life information, what happened, all that sort of thing. But anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all coming along with us today and hearing our little story. And I hope it my hope is that it kind of inspires you to take advantage of life today, because it might not be there tomorrow. I mean, if you think about these three people, just these three, not counting any of the other children, they had all kinds of plans. They had all kinds of plans for Donald, and none of it happened. And the same thing could happen to us at any point. So that's why it's important. Anyway, guys, we'll see y'all next time. Like I said, thank you for coming along, and you guys have a really good day. From way back in the hills and hollers of southern West Virginia and my old stomping grounds, almost said Maitland, Merrimac, West Virginia. We'll see you guys later. Y'all have a good day, and Leo out.